that can help people in a situation like I'm in to choose what axle ratio is best for their trucking operation. Now, here's axle ratios for my Meritor axle RT46, basically 46,000 pounds. And these are the ratios for the different gears. So H means high, L means low. So 8 high is gear 18, and so forth. Basically, I just included the top range from 5 low to 8 high. Right, and these are the engine RPM at 60 miles per hour and engine RPM at 57. And here's a couple of formulas. It's always useful to know. Now these numbers here, some people would say it's wrong, but you can calculate the torque at the wheels by multiplying the engine torque times gear ratio times axle ratio, and that's why the numbers change here, right? So for example, to get this number, what I did was I multiplied 1860 times 0.73 is the gear ratio of that gear, 8 high, times 391, my current axle ratio, right? And that's torque at the wheels, which is it's a theoretic number because there's loss through friction, through the engine. There's also another factor such as the tire radius, but these are still good numbers. Basically, what happens is that, why do I want to change the axle ratio? Because I think that based on my last experience with that heavy excavator, 78.5 thousand pounds, going through Pennsylvania, I just had doubts that the truck will be drivable with a 90,000 pound excavator. And because I have 7 axles, that's what I can do in Canada. But these numbers, that's why you have a transmission, right? So because your torque stays the same, the axle ratio stays the same, but because you can shift gears, you can multiply the torque at the wheels. And yes, this is 16,581, that's pounds per foot. Which means that as you climb the hill with a heavy load, the load on the engine keeps increasing because of gravity and stuff like that, friction, traction. And so you have to shift gears in order to compensate for that. And what happens a couple of big hills, I had to go all the way down to 5 low, which means that that particular hill required this much torque, okay, all the way to 5 low. And of course, the idea behind changing the axle ratio is to make it easier on the engine, on the truck, on the drivetrain to climb a hill. So if you look here, so 16,581. So let's say I want to climb the same hill, but instead of 5 low, at least 5 high, just basically gain half a gear. Now, if we look at the numbers here, this is a 4:10 ratio. And as you notice, the numbers are higher for each particular gear ratio. And that's what, of course, you see you gain torque at the wheels. Not much, but what is it, like 5%? In each gear, you have more torque. But the thing is that we need 16,581 in 5 low. Let's say we're talking about the same hill. But so I need that number, but somewhere here, higher, right? If I see this number with 410 in 5 high, or a high number, that means that I can climb the same hill in 5 high instead of 5 low with 391, right? But the thing is that with 410, 5 high, it's still below this number, you see? So 5 low is higher than here, but that only means that I still have to go all the way down to 5 low on that particular hill. The same hill where I had to go to 5 low with 391, so I had to go to 5 low with 410. Nothing changed except now because I have more torque at the wheels, I'll be able to probably either to reduce my RPM and climb the hill with less RPM on the engine, or I can climb that hill faster, but I still have to use 5 low, right? And so if that's an interesting, very interesting thing you can discover about this gearing, and of course it took me a while to, come up with all these numbers, but from this comparison, you can see that only 456 in 5 high provides almost the same torque at the wheels as required here in 5 low. So which means that on that particular hill, where I had to go down all the way to 5 low with 391 ratio, I would be able to maintain or stay in 5 high. But for that to happen, I would have to go not to 410 or even 4.3, but 4.56 axle ratio, right? So you do gain enough torque, but all you get is just half a gear, because to go to, let's say, 6 low, right? You see here, even with 456, you only have 13.7, 13,740 torque, while you need this in order to gain 1 full gear. So you only gain half a gear. And that kind of, I was surprised to see this, because I thought with 410 definitely you would see some considerable improvement. And no way I'm going to 456, because look at these numbers. This is your RPM at 60 miles an hour and 57. And of course you do that by using this formula. So that's my tire revolutions per mile, my particular tire, Bridgestone. And this is the top gear ratio, this one, in 8 high gear. And this is the axle ratio. So that's why the speed changes, because we changed the axle ratio, right? So the higher the numeric number is, the higher your engine RPM will be. So 456, that's too high for 60, because the Max says that the fuel efficiency is between 1350 to 1450 RPM. That's for this particular MP8 13 liter engine. Okay, let's make it green. So this is our fuel efficiency. So, and just to compare, let's say I want to be fuel efficient. That's my goal. I want to be able to drive 57 miles per hour or 92k an hour, and I want to be able to drive 60, because that's a very nice speed, because it's 1 mile per minute. Very good to calculate, how much time you need to reach a particular destination, because if it's 200 miles, that means that you need 200 minutes, or if it's 120 miles, you need 120 minutes. Like, very easy, right? So that's a very good speed recommended for day-to-day operation, but sometimes you need to slow down. But here you see that even at 57, the RPM is too high, much higher than the fuel efficient RPM. So 456 is just, is just no good. We can gray it out somehow. Yeah, make it like this. So this is not good. Now here, at 60, we're at 1544, and at 57, we're at 1466. But that's it can be a little bit fuel efficient, but then it'll be very slow all the time, And plus, you still only gain, what is this here? 15. You see, you cannot even go to 15 high. I mean 5 high. So you don't gain anything in terms of gears on a hill, but all you do is you lose RPM. So this is the only one that's still more or less fuel efficient, because you're close to this range at 57 and at 60, more or less. and you do gain something, but you still nothing changes in your gear selection for that particular hill, right? Between 391 and 410. Now, if we look here, one more interesting thing that we can do is looking at this formula here. Horsepower equals torque times RPM of the engine divided by 5252. Don't ask me what that is, but that's the connection between horsepower and torque. So basically, horsepower, it's torque multiplied by engine RPM. All right, so that's why horsepower changes all the time depending on your RPM. But here, what we can see is that we can compare like 5566. Like, what does that do? You know, so the difference is, what is it? We gain 258 pounds per foot of torque at the wheels with 410 versus 3.91, right? So 5566 divided by 391 divided by 0.73. So you see, 1950. So basically, having 410, it's the same as if we increased the torque from 1860. That's my torque now, to 1950. So basically, if you have 1950 torque and 3.91 ratio, you will get this number, right? So it's the same as if increasing the torque by 90 units, right? And 1950. So is it a lot? Does it justify spending $3,000? I don't know. So 1950 times 1400 RPM divided by 5252. That's 519 horsepower, which doesn't make sense because my engine is limited to 505, right? But here, once again, so 1860 torque, that's our horsepower with the gained torque and 410, right? But if we look at this one, 1860 times, let's say the same 1400 RPM, right? And divided by 5252, that's 495. Okay. So basically, using 410 axle ratio instead of 3.91 is the same as adding 24 horsepower, right? 519 minus 495. Yep, 24 horsepower. So you only gain 24 horsepower. Now, is that enough, again, to justify spending $3,000 on new differentials? You know, somehow I don't think so. You know, I can gain 25 horsepower by changing my air filter, or by modifying my exhaust, or something like that, or better yet, getting a tuner, like a programmer, because I remember that power harness that I use on my cat, it was what, like $250, and I gained what was it? I think like 200 horsepower or 100 horsepower in like setting 10, and that was only $200. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So by knowing these little formulas here, you can do these calculations and you can decide for yourself if it's worthwhile, you know, your money to go from one axle ratio to another. And all you need to know is you need to know your ratios for each gear, and I got these from the Eaton website, and mine is 18-speed manual. And then you need to know these formulas, right? And that's it. So once again, what we learned is that changing the axle ratio from 3.91 to 410 at the cost of $3,000, I would still be climbing the hill on the same 5 low, like the same big hill in Pennsylvania I'm talking about, because there's not enough difference here. So the only difference will be I'll be climbing it a bit faster, or I could decrease the RPM. So it might be a bit easier. Well, it will be easier on the drive line and the engine, but the RPM at 60 increases and the RPM at 57 increases, so you lose the fuel mileage. So there you go. So I hope you haven't fallen asleep yet, but sometimes numbers can help when planning such big expenditures. So thanks for watching.